I don't know why I'm in the woods.
You know who would know why they're in the woods? Lara Croft of Tomb Raider. Created by European studio Core Design and published by Eidos, the original Tomb Raider went through several stages in development, with even at one point Lara being one of 2 playable characters, as well as the game being a big action-oriented 3D shoot-them-up. However, as the game was being developed, the team realized it would be a slower puzzle platformer and decided to base it around Indiana Jones, as the main character would be solving puzzles in remnants of ancient civilizations. They eventually scrapped the other playable male character in favor of the female one, who went through several changes herself, and was once even called Laura Cruz. Laura. Being a European studio, they decided to change her to be more British to appeal to that European crowd, and Lara Croft was born. When it was released, the game was revolutionary and it helped introduce aspects that got fine-tuned as the years went on, like third-person shooting, new ways to traverse 3D environments, and of course one of, if not the most recognized woman in video games. And I never gave a single shit about it. In fact, until this video, I have never even touched a single Tomb Raider game. Why? Because I was a cool boy, and cool boys don't play games as gross, smelly girls. We play as anthropomorphic animals and whatever the fuck Rayman is. Now, despite my childhood sexism, eventually I did grow to love Lara, and now she's one of my favorite video game characters ever. How do I love her so much if I've never played the games? Well, it's from the Tomb Raider comics by Top Cow, a subsidiary of Image Comics. These were awesome. The art was amazing, the stories were fun, globe-trotting adventures that had interesting characters and some fun, goofy, mystical elements. But even though I didn't play them as a kid, I did still know about them because my brother owned them on our PS1 back in the day, so I'd watch him play them. And one of the reasons I remember it so well is because it was one of the first times my mom actually got into games with me and my brother, sometimes joining him to help solve puzzles and figure out where to go next. So yeah, while not directly affecting me, I do have a soft spot for the original Tomb Raiders, as they helped my mom understand me and my brother's obsession with video games at the time, I think. And since I figured, well, I'm looking at 2 PlayStation mascots I know incredibly well, why not look at one that I know next to nothing about and see for myself if playing these games would make me love the character even more than I already do, or if maybe there's a reason this series was rebooted twice. So of course we're going to start with the original, the very first Tomb Raider game released in 1996 for the Sega Saturn. Yes, Lara first hit the scene on Sega's first CD console, the first good one. The better running but worst selling console to the Sony DVD player Alpha. Well, the Saturn version when it came out was unfortunately riddled with bugs, glitches, performance issues, graphical hiccups, and many more. So when it came time to make the PlayStation version, Core Design made sure to iron out everything for that release. And since the PlayStation sold way better than the Saturn, more people bought it and played that version, and after that, Lara was a one-console woman. Oh, and most of these games released on PC as well, but PC's overrated. Point is, most of us know Lara from the PlayStation, so I'm mostly going to be trying to play these on PlayStation consoles. So before we get into the game proper, let's talk about the story. Usually, I don't care about stories in games, but when it's a game based more in reality, if you know what I mean, I do like some plots and characters. Lara Croft, the daughter of Lord Handheld Croft, was raised to be an aristocrat from birth. After finishing college at 21, on her way home from a skiing trip, her chartered plane had crashed deep in the heart of the Himalayas. Being the only survivor, Lara learned how to depend on her own wits to stay alive in hostile conditions, a world away from her sheltered upbringing. After being rescued, she was unable to stand the claustrophobic, suffocating atmosphere of upper-class British society, and realized that she was only truly alive when she was traveling alone. Over the 8 following years, she acquired an intimate knowledge of ancient civilizations across the globe. Her family disowned their prodigal daughter, and she turned to writing to fund her trips. Famed for discovering several ancient sites of profound archaeological interest, she made a name for herself by publishing travel books and detailed journals of her exploits. Now that's a pretty cool backstory, right? Too bad it's not actually in the game. That blurb I just read was from the manual, you know, that thing nobody reads so they stop making them. The actual in-game story doesn't really go into that. In the game it just kind of starts like, yeah, here's Lara, go. The actual story in the game is, okay, I guess. It's a typical kind of story for a globe-trotting adventure, which I guess is the point. Lara is hired by Jaquella Natla to find the Scion, one of the keys to finding Atlantis. However, she betrays Lara, sending goons after her. As it turns out, Natla was one of the rulers of Atlantis and wanted Lara to find all the keys to unlock it so she could make an army of mutants or something. Now, the main problem with the story of the first game is how it's told. See, most of the time is spent all in tombs, you know, doing the raiding thing. And you're going to find out later, but you are in these tombs for possibly hours. Then after several levels, you are given a cutscene that lasts like 3 minutes, giving you some okay exposition on what's happening. What I'm saying is the pacing is awful and almost non-existent. And you will too, as whether you like it or not, you will become so engrossed in the gameplay that you will forget everything else around you, most of the time not for good reasons. So first off, let me say the one thing I love about this game is the atmosphere. The main menu establishes the tone great with this music that instills a sense of eerie dread but also adventurous curiosity. Till it cockblocks you with the demo. Then you get the opening cutscene with Lara opening the tomb and her guide getting killed by wolves, leading into you, alone, traversing a deep, dank cave with no music or anything, just the sound of your footsteps echoing throughout, showing you how alone you truly are. You control Lara, unfortunately, with tank controls. I know, the only people who think tank controls are good are Capcom shills, and normally I'd be there with you saying tank controls should stay burned in the fires of old copies of RE0, but to my surprise, I actually didn't mind it here. I think the reason is that since you use forward to move Lara, the devs were smart enough to make sure the camera, for the most part, stayed behind her. So unlike a Biohazard where when you move screens you have to constantly readjust yourself to figure out how to move due to the changing camera angles, here it's usually always the same movement since the camera follows you. Even when I was walking down tight corners, the camera was fine to my surprise, I didn't have any issues with it. Even if you need to get used to the controls, you can do so in a cute tutorial mode where you get to go around Lara's mansion and she teaches you how to play the game. Man, I love this kind of stuff. It's such a great way to get the player immersed in the game and instantly adds so much personality.
Air. Right, now I'd better take off these wet clothes.
Yes, Lara, that's very hot and I'll take care of it later, but right now I need to talk about the rest of the gameplay, like jumping. This is technically a platformer after all, sort of. It's not a high-speed one though. In this game you need to take it slow, planning out each jump as meticulously as possible. Using Lara's incredible walking ability, you need to often be at the very edge of platforms to make jumps, and sometimes you need to use the grab button to grab ledges to pull yourself up. Lara can also do some stuff like dodge rolls, swim, which also surprisingly controls well. Yeah, for the most part, I think this game still controls fine. Considering it's technically a slow puzzle game, the controls are never a hindrance as it rarely ever asks for quick reactions or ultra-precise jumps. As long as you plan out everything and take your time, you'll do fine. Most of the time. Surprisingly too, I didn't even hate the combat. Yeah, it's archaic and doesn't feel great by today's standards, but remember, this is one of the grandmas of third-person action games, so for a first outing, I think it's actually pretty good. This is mainly because Lara auto-aims, so you don't have to worry about that. Just whip out her trusty dual pistols and you'll obliterate enemies in seconds. Honestly, the auto-aim is kinda too powerful. I never felt threatened by any enemy because I knew I could kill them fast and only had to focus on dodging. Because you're mostly fighting creatures that try to attack you up close, so they're not too hard, they can never really get close to you. It does really suck fighting the few human enemies in this game though, because there's no such thing as cover, or what seems to be AI for them, so you just stand there and shoot them until you kill them before they kill you. Better get all those med packs. So yeah, to my very shocking surprise, I thought the way Tomb Raider controlled was very good. Of course, comparing it today, it's awful. It's some of the worst third-person controls I've ever seen, but that's just because of advancements in technology. But for the time it was made in, yeah, I can definitely see why this game was seen as revolutionary, and for 1996, it's super impressive. Even graphically, the game looks pretty good, even behind the PS1 32 bits of crunch. Unfortunately, where I think the game fails is the design, even today. It's archaic bullshit and kinda unfair sometimes. So, if my subtlety went past you, even if you're used to the controls, you will die in this game. A lot. And when you die, you respawn at a save point. Okay, that's not so bad. The problem is, when you save at a save point, it disappears. You can't save again, so you better make sure you save at the right time so you don't die and lose an hour of progress and all those items you picked up, because you're gonna have to get them all again. Also, some areas can be confusing to navigate your first time. This is because the climbable areas or movable objects have no clear distinction that makes them recognizable at a glance. Yeah, the areas aren't big, and once you know where to go, you won't get lost easily, but at first you'll spend most of your time looking around just trying to figure out where to go. It's also because the hitbox on Lara and the objects can be finicky, and even though it looks like you should activate something or grab something, it just doesn't for some reason. Sometimes without even trying, you'll find a secret and get this little satisfying jingle. God, I love that. I just wish the secrets were less necessary. Most of the secrets are either health, which is something you need, or extra weapons and ammo, which aren't needed, but are definitely fun to have. I don't get why they're secret. And honestly, finding these secrets never really felt satisfying, because the reward was something that should just be a common collectible, I feel. Also, again, the hitbox for picking up these items is very wonky. Sometimes you have to be in front of it, sometimes right on top of it. It's all over the place. Finally, despite being a puzzle game, I think the puzzles are kind of shit. They are usually pull a switch, or push a block, or pull a switch, jump, pull multiple switches, ooh, fancy. Even for the few that did get me to think, I thought they were pretty cryptic. Like, you have to use these switches in a certain order to open doors in this temple. Okay, but at least to my knowledge, there is no indication in the game on how to do this, or that even doing this opens doors in this room. Heck, even if you get the combination right, there's no jingle or anything that lets you know that you did. You have to just go check. So I spent a long ass time trying different combinations and constantly checking doors to see if something worked. You may say that's part of the experience. I say it's bullshit. And for those of you who are going to say, why don't you just use a walkthrough, idiot? That kind of defeats the point of a puzzle game, don't you think? Sure, I'll use walkthroughs like most people. Well, that's usually if I'm running low on time for these videos, or maybe I'm streaming and I need to get going. But when playing on my own, well, here's an artist's interpretation of me with walkthroughs.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it.
Overall, though, I will say, shockingly, I enjoyed my time playing the first Tomb Raider. I was expecting it to be some primitive, unplayable beta test for what would be the good games coming later. But for the first time, especially for this genre, it's not bad. Let me be clear, I wouldn't recommend anyone play this today. There's literally no reason to, unless you're curious about gaming history or something. So yeah, that was the first Tomb Raider game, and because of its revolutionary design, is what made Lara famous. Well, okay. It wasn't just the game that made her famous. God. Okay, I've been trying to avoid this for a while, but we have to talk about it. That's right. If you haven't noticed, Lara Croft has boobs. Now, apparently, the lore, yes, there's lore for her chest, is that when one of the developers was making the model, they accidentally increased the breast size by 150%, and everyone thought that was okay, I guess, so they kept it in. Now, some members of core design have denied that, saying that it was put in without anyone noticing, but the general consensus is she was not originally built with that body, yada yada. And look, we're talking about the history of Lara Croft. It's kind of impossible to not talk about this feature of hers, because you can't really deny this didn't affect her climb to fame in some way. You have to remember, back in the 90s, the idea of polygons being fuckable was a new concept at the time, so she was big, almost as big as her chest. She was on magazines, commercials, billboards, usually nude or in some skimpy outfit. Even if you never played the games, you knew who Lara Croft was. She was that famous. This did, unfortunately, make Lara seem like nothing more than some character to pan to horny teenage boys, because, well, that's how they advertised her. But no matter how you looked at it, she was clearly the new hotness. So seeing that new hotness, the publishers of Tomb Raider, Eidos, saw all the money she was printing, not just from games, but from other things, and they had an idea. An awful idea. A wonderfully awful idea. They decided they needed to keep Lara in that cultural zeitgeist, so they, convinced core design to make a new Tomb Raider game every single year. And look, even for games today, despite them taking years to make, yearly turnarounds aren't that crazy. You know, if you're an EA Sports or a Just Dance game, you know, games that constantly reuse assets and are manned by armies of developers. But core design was not necessarily an army, and sure, they could reuse assets, but every game they would pretty much have to come up with new gameplay mechanics, new puzzles, new stories, new characters, and new environments. I'm sure this decision will only end in good. So, released at the height of her popularity a year later, you bet your ass Tomb Raider 2 sold a fuck ton. They even put starring Lara Croft in the title, cause, well, she did sell the game at this point, putting Lara up there with iconic video game characters to sell the game, like Joe Montana and Donald Duck. So, I swear I don't plan this, but typical with most of the videos I've been making about games recently, with these games being made a year apart on the same hardware, the next couple games are all very similar. This one is probably the biggest difference, introducing more weapons, vehicle segments, and larger levels. Also, you may notice this is the game that gave Lara her free-flowing braided ponytail, one of the best decisions ever. This is also the first game to give her different outfits, like a wetsuit and a flight jacket. Other than those and some new moves like climbing, my mortal nemesis, it's the same game more or less. To me, things like the new moves, weapons, and vehicles, it don't really add much. I guess they are a change of pace, but the vehicle sections are just a novelty, like, oh look, the levels are so big you can drive around in them, but they're so empty with nothing to do as a result. Now you pick up ammo and health from, unfortunately, all the human enemies, as Tomb Raider 2 decided to become that more action-oriented game it was originally supposed to be, and I don't like it. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like Tomb Raider 2, it's not a good. You may have already figured out why with me saying fighting humans in 1 sucked, and that the gameplay has stayed the same. Yep. Like, I'm gonna be honest, this game bored me because of how scuffed it was. The AI, like you, have auto-aim, so they will never miss. Even if you try to jump around and dodge, they will manage to hit you somehow. Unlike the last game where you will have an abundance of med packs, here you'll be praying the next enemy you kill drops one, or you'll be on death's door constantly. It's even worse in the vehicles. You can't shoot while in them, but they can shoot you, so in order to take out an enemy, you have to get out, draw your weapon, and hope you kill them before they deal too much damage. This is the bad combat I expected Tomb Raider 1 to have. It was a little later than I thought. Now some of you may say I'm being a bit harsh. Yes, I am, because I got the first one some slack since it's the first one, and yeah, Core had a mandate for this, but conditions be damned. As a consumer, I expected more innovation than a harpoon gun. The story isn't any better either, which is why I didn't mention it. It's not good, it doesn't matter. But remember, Lara at the time was the tits, so to speak, so of course, 2 sold amazingly well, pretty much doubling the original, and was loved by fans and critics. So, about a year later, we got Tomb Raider 3, Adventures of Lara Croft. Once again, it plays the same, new moves being crawling, so you can look right up Lara's gooch, and a move that I actually love, a dash button. Thank God. With the levels getting bigger, Lara's standard speed was getting a bit slow, so this is a welcome addition. Now the third game I have the least to say about, because guess what, it's exactly the same. I will say it weirdly took away something I liked, which is when you picked up an item, it would show on the bottom of the screen what it was. And that's needed because I can't tell what half of this stuff is, even when close up, because of all the 32 bits in the way. So basically when I pick something up and I don't know what it is, I have to go into my inventory and figure out what the hell I just picked up. That's dumb. Why'd they change that? Another thing they changed that I'm not sure if I like or dislike is saving. Now you collect the save crystals, and then you can use them like an item to save anywhere. And unfortunately this means, while yeah, saving anywhere is great, you still have a limited number of saves, so they kind of changed it, I guess, sort of. The story is alright, I guess, it's just very jumbled, and that's because after the first stage, you can then do the next 3 in any order, which is cool, kind of like a Mega Man game. But this means the cutscenes there have to be in this state, as if Lara hasn't done anything else yet, so they kind of barely matter. I guess I haven't really mentioned them, but the characterizations and voice acting have been pretty good throughout all the games. No complaints in that department. It's just the way these stories are presented is very clunky. But yeah, in an effort to not repeat myself, it's the same as 2 in a lot of ways. All the stuff that sucked still sucks, and all the stuff that was good is now becoming okay as they receive no upgrades or changes. Man, if only Core Design had more time to develop these games so they can actually do that. But we gotta have one before every holiday season, so the next year we got Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation. However, this one is actually pretty different, as by this point Core Design was getting sick of making these Tomb Raider games every year, and we're getting burnt out having to come up with new ideas with so little time. Wow, who could have seen that coming? So I actually think this is kind of funny. They decided that in this game, they were going to kill Lara. Spoilers. What's kind of funny about it is that they kept the decision to kill Lara hidden long enough that it would be impossible to go back and change it without delaying the game past the yearly mandate Eidos had set. Which, yeah, kind of cool and funny that they did that, but it's also kind of sad that they had to do that. Now, obviously, this isn't the last of Lara, but since they wanted it to be the last one, the team went all out, and yeah, honestly, I'd say, out of all the original Tomb Raiders, yeah, this one's my favorite. For one, I actually like the story, I think it's good. In one of her tomb raiding escapades, Lara unknowingly releases the spirit of an Egyptian god, Set, and accidentally starts the apocalypse. Whoops. So the goal for this is to race against time to restore Set to his resting place before the bad stuff. But Set's no bitch and doesn't want to be put in timeout again, so he possesses the body of Lara's mentor, Werner von Croy, who Lara thought died years ago during a tomb raid. So not only is there an actual goal here besides just get the treasure, we also have a prominent villain who not only shows up often enough we don't forget about him, but also has a connection to Lara, making it more personal for her and more interesting for us. Especially since you see the relationship in a neat flashback that also acts as the tutorial level at the beginning of the game. She even has a companion in Jean-Yves, who doesn't get much honestly, but it's nice to have an actual side character in these to give more world building. Yeah, the story isn't told exactly like how I described it. Again, the actual delivery through the cutscenes is still very clunky, but I can tell more effort was put into this one. Graphics are better as well. The environments, I can tell, are more based on real locations rather than squares with textures. The gameplay, well, yeah, unfortunately no real changes there, but that's not surprising at this point. Oh no, wait, you get shitty rope swing mechanics. Thanks, I hate it. Level design, though, I think is amazing. Not only are there more levels on a larger scale, they even have alternate routes that you can even backtrack to some levels after beating them to keep exploring them to find everything. And guess what? Fuck switches, we're done with those. This game has actual, factual puzzles that made me use this thing. Now yeah, some of these puzzles I still would describe as bullshit, but some were kinda clever or just fun. Like this one in this Egyptian adventure where you use a mirror to dodge invisible traps and have to insert a token to make the snake charmer spawn a rope to climb up. And now instead of pushing blocks, you push many different shapes. The only downsides I feel is the game is a little too long. Yeah, it was their last effort, but some segments can drag on for a while. Also, again, they had to make them every year. It plays the same as all of them. You play one Tomb Raider, you played them all. But unfortunately, even though they killed the main character, Eidos wasn't done printing money, so a year later, the last PS1 title, Tomb Raider Chronicles, was made. So how do they make a Tomb Raider game when she herself is buried in a tomb? Well, it's an anthology, and some friends of Lara, after attending her funeral, reminisce on some of her adventures, which are the levels you play. I'm not going to get into them because they aren't that interesting. The only one that stuck with me was the last one, as it had Lara trying to steal an artifact already in someone's possession in an office building, which I thought was a cool idea for a level in Tomb Raider. Also, she wears this awful skin-tight catsuit and has a sassy black sidekick.
Unlucky for them. Any welcome party?
That's your job, girl. I ain't no X-ray vision superhero.
I'd noticed the last bit.
Ooh, you are so sharp you're gonna cut yourself. Just remember, the less attention, the better. You dig?
But yeah, despite being the last classic PS1 title, there's not much to say. The combat still sucks. The puzzles range from being able to be solved by a toddler to the most cryptic bullshit ever. The story is bleh. I will say, at least I think the graphics have been the one consistent improvement throughout the series. However, after 5 games, it took this long for people in the 90s to figure out what I did 4 games ago, that these are all the same and are unfortunately being made by people who don't want to make these games anymore. So this game kind of flopped critically and sort of commercially, and is considered to be one of the worst ones in the core games. But hey, we don't have to worry about that. Laura's not dying, because we got the brand new Sony PlayStation Duh on the way. And you bet Eidos cracked that whip on core to make sure that a Tomb Raider game was going to be there for a launch title, and it was. 3 years later. Now, it took 3 years to make due to many development issues and other things that better YouTubers than me have made videos about. But to make a long story short, it all culminated into Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness being released in 2003. And it was rightfully bashed for even existing. Yeah, look, I'm not going to waste any time. This game sucks. The story, if you want to call it that, is a broken mess of a narrative with bad, unlikable characters and useless dialogue options. But who cares about that? How about those tombs? I don't know, because I didn't see them. Yeah, for some reason, a mission for the devs with Tomb Raider AOD was to get rid of the tombs, which you could see as either a genius move to help reinvigorate the series, or stupid. Also, for some reason, Lara just doesn't have her iconic dual pistols anymore. Like, why? That's not even like a how dare you situation, it's just, why? And oh my god. I'm sorry, PS1 Tomb Raider games. I'm never going to complain about you guys being the same ever again, because Angel of Darkness does play differently. It plays like shit. I have rewritten how to describe the controls of this game 5 times. If you forgot, Lara in the PS1 games operated on tank controls. That worked in my opinion because the camera was always behind her in some capacity. In Angel of Darkness, instead, the camera can be moved how you like, so they changed it that she now moves like any standard game. Hit right, she turns right. Hit back, she walks back. But she still also operates on tank controls, sort of. So to move forward, sometimes you still hit forward, but can also hit the actual direction. Like I said, I had to rewrite this a lot, man. It's just really hard to describe how bad the controls in this game feel. Now look here, I managed to die in the tutorial because of these controls. Now you may laugh and say that it's just because I suck, but no, it's not. You really don't understand how bad this game plays until you've actually played it. It's one of those. The game for some reason also has this really unnecessary RPG element where sometimes Lara will say,
I feel stronger now.
and now she can hold onto things longer. Okay? Why is this even in the game? Look, I'm gonna be honest, I did not play this game for long, and I don't think anyone will blame me. In fact, I think Angel of Darkness, Tomb Raider Edition, is without hesitation one of the worst games I've ever played. Like, there's no joke, no hyperbole on what I'm saying. It's that bad. It's at the bottom of my list. Like, you know what? I think this game's so bad, I can't be in the same room as it. Why am I even in the same area, the same zip code as this thing? I need to get as far away from this game as possible.
Oh, right. That's how I got in the woods.
But yeah, unfortunately, I only ended up liking 2 out of the 6 games made by the original team. Not a great batting average. Probably gonna take me a while till I get back to my room so I can play the reboots of Tomb Raider. Luckily, I brought my Game Boy SP and Game Boy Color with me along with the Tomb Raider games made for it to help pass the time. That's right, not only did Core make the console games, they were also tasked with making handheld companions. This is why it's important to negotiate contracts, people. Now, the GBA has me worried about how they're going to do a Tomb Raider game on it, but I'm not that worried. This brick, though. If you're new here, there's a motto on my channel. Fuck the Game Boy and the color it would eventually get. The only thing this brick is good for is fuel for a campfire. And how in the fudge do you even take something like the 3D environmental puzzle solving of Tomb Raider that pushed the PS1 to its limits and put it on this thing? Well, let's find out on the first Game Boy Color game simply titled Tomb Raider. So the story, I don't care again. It's not that great anyway, but I do appreciate the ambition, I guess, of these cutscenes, but taking the polygon models and turning them into shitty PNGs scaled down for the Game Boy does not do Lara any favors. So the game starts and, oh, okay, that's how they're gonna do it. It's a side-scrolling platformer on the Game Boy. Great. I love these. Okay. Maybe I'm going a little crazy from being lost in the woods for the span of a YouTube video, but I actually like this game. It basically takes the slower platforming of the original games and adapts it to a side-scroller, and usually I hate platformers on the brick since they try to get you to do the fast-paced reactionary platforming that it can't handle. But here, since it's based on Tomb Raider, it slows it down and has you plan out your jumps, so it's way more tolerable. And they also did a surprisingly good job adapting the controls of Tomb Raider to a 2D side-scroller game, especially considering they have less than half the buttons to work with. I mean, it still has problems. It lacks any puzzles at all to progress. It's mostly platforming to get a key or something. But really, I think the game is fine for a Game Boy Color game. Color me surprised. Well, with that not sucking, I'm actually interested to check out the sequel, Curse of the Sword, also for Game Boy Color. Uh-oh. Wait, it looks like the exact same game. Okay, so this one's probably gonna suck. What is happening? Why are these games not shit? Why am I enjoying them? I knew I should have stopped eating these mushrooms I found. And like I said, it plays pretty much the same as the last one, a running theme with Miss Croft. But this game does some things even mainline Tomb Raider games need, like showing you what switches and keys do in the stage so you know where to go, as well as, look at that, items flash now to help them stand out from the background, something that should have been standard since Tomb Raider 2. Also, this one leans more into the 2D platforming, making it way more action-oriented than the last one, which is fine, it's still not bad. I could do without the timed running segments though. Again, it's just a fine Game Boy Color game. There's nothing really special about it, but it's not bad, to my surprise. Finally, the handheld trilogy ends with Tomb Raider the Prophecy on GBA. Why is the title screen so shit? Why is the text hugging the top? Why is the text in the exposition centered on the screen but still left justified? And oh god, no, it's a top-down isometric game? Okay, this one's probably gonna be... Well, talk about first impressions meaning nothing. 3 times in a row, I say, this game is not bad. Lara actually controls very well, and this top-down view really emulates those 3D environments from the originals on GBA. Even the combat, while not being great, I think is probably the best combat in any Tomb Raider game I've played so far. Yeah, that's right, it's simple and it gets old, but as combat mechanics go, it's probably the best of the core design games. It allows you to strafe while Lara auto-targets, so you can focus on dodging while she takes care of most of the aiming. I really only have one major problem with the game, and that it saves with a password system, which is fine, and I'm glad they are short and easy to remember. The problem is it doesn't actually save your progress. Collecting items is kinda useless, since when you die, it doesn't spawn you with all the extra items like medpacks and extra ammo that you could have collected. It only spawns you with the very basic stuff you would have at that point to be able to progress and maybe some extra stuff. So it makes exploration and collecting useless since it doesn't save, so if you die or just turn off the game because you're done for the day, all the items you collected while exploring will be gone when you load something with a password. A major flaw in an otherwise good game. Yeah, it gets repetitive, but calling a Game Boy Advance game repetitive is just stating the obvious. That's like saying the sky is red and covered in the heads of Bob Ross. Okay, I really should stop eating those mushrooms. How did I get back in my room? Wasn't I just in the woods? Okay. Either the magic of video editing brought me back here, or those mushrooms killed me and I'm in hell now. Well, either way, I still got more Tomb Raider games to play. But yeah, after the last few Tomb Raider games weren't doing so well and Angel of Darkness flopped, Eidos decided to cut core design out of any future Tomb Raiding, cause yeah, it was clearly their fault that the games were declining in quality. So to give Lara a new look and reinvigorate the franchise, they gave it to a developer they worked with before, Crystal Dynamics, who of course, we all know for their other iconic PlayStation title, Gex the Lizard.
My nipples feel like snow peas.
So in the mid-thousands, they made what is known now as the Legends trilogy, beginning with appropriately, Tomb Raider Legend. Now like I said, I was going to try my best to play all of these on PlayStation, but I guess at some point I picked up these games on Steam, I guess during some sale or something, so I'll be playing these next few on PC because, well, I already bought them. And Tomb Raider Legend, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I don't think it's amazing or anything, but it's a good base for the start of a reboot. It involves Lara's parents, in a way, after her plane crashed as well as an old friend that supposedly died in an expedition, all tied to some ancient mumbo-jumbo. It's still not great, but it gave more reason for why shit was happening than any of the games before it. Personally, I'd say I'm not a fan of Lara's new supporting cast because they never shut the fuck up. Remember that feeling of isolation and dread as you combed through a tomb in complete silence, not knowing what's around the corner? Yeah, that's all gone because these a-holes constantly banter with each other and Lara. Sound like Joss Whedon wrote this shit.
So the shaman would be Merlin, and the staff would be whatever the hell King Arthur's sword was called.
It's called coincidence.
Funny name for a sword.
At least Lara's characterization is great. Here she's more in line with at least the version I have in my head from the comics. Graphically the game looks good. I mean, obviously I'm playing this on PC on the highest settings. I did still have the occasional graphical glitch, though. That's not how you climb a ladder, Lara, you silly. The gameplay also feels pretty good. It at least feels like the new next-gen Lara that the other game tried to do. It does take a little bit to get used to, but once you do, it really does feel like a natural update to classic Tomb Raider controls. No more tank controls, thank God. And also they simplified some things, like you no longer have to hold a button to grab ledges, it's automatic. And she also has this new grappling hook, which I don't feel used to its potential, only for stuff like pulling things, and at least the rope swinging is better, I guess. Puzzles are pretty good, I guess. Nothing really stumped me, but it did have me thinking more often about what to do. They even have a way to help you know what is interactable in the environment by using your binocucom to help you out if you're lost. Unfortunately, yeah, I still don't really like the combat, and I'm gonna be honest, in a post-RE4 world, I'm gonna be harsher. Yeah, it only came out a year after, I don't care. Cause this auto-aiming thing sucks, and unlike the PS1 games, here it's worse because you have to hold a button to even use it. Also, since they added real physics to the bullets, you can't hit enemies too far away, which is the point of shooting. You can aim by clicking the right stick, but you can't move, so you'll barely use it. Boss battles as well aren't that great, you just shoot them and you win. Even the vehicle sections are kind of a downgrade. Unlike past games where you could drive around a level, here they're basically auto-scrollers, and they're fine, just not really that memorable. Instead of combat and puzzles though, this game really wants you to climb stuff, which yes is nothing new, but the platforming doesn't feel as unique as before. In the past it was slow, methodical, every jump mattered because if you miss you die. Here for the time, I guess this was new, it was a pre-Assassin's Creed world after all. But playing it today, it's standard parkour stuff I can get from any AAA game these days. Overall though, it's okay. I don't have any strong feelings towards Tomb Raider Legend, positive or negative. It definitely does feel like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of deal. Like, it's a good base for a modern Tomb Raider, it's just not clearly there yet. Hell, I would have actually kept playing the game and beat it, but unfortunately I had to stop halfway through because my game crashed. PC Master Race my ass. So after establishing this new look, this new feel, this new tone and direction for Lara, the next clear step was a remake of the original Tomb Raider, of course. I see Eidos is still making good decisions over there. To still keep it in the new timeline, this technically takes place before Legend, as if that matters. But yeah, here we have Tomb Raider Anniversary. And in my humble opinion, I think Tomb Raider Anniversary is the best Tomb Raider game, at least out of the ones I've played so far, and it's definitely my new favorite in the series. Story-wise, well, it's exactly the same as the first game, it's a remake, I don't know what you were expecting. But those crafty Gex people added some additional cutscenes to give more context to the villain characters, as well as some extra cutscenes for the actual tomb raiding, giving you more of that sweet, sweet lore. Gameplay-wise, it plays the same as Legend, little to no difference. I guess now you have this bullet time dodge, that's kind of neat. And of course, Lara has some new moves now. If you're wondering why I'm jumping so much, she moves faster like this. Yeah, I guess the Legend version of Lara forgot how to dash. Well, okay, if it's the same story as Tomb Raider 1 with the gameplay of Legends, what makes it so good in my opinion? Well, I got 3 words for you. Climb, Ming, puzzles. I think in this game, Crystal D has managed to finally combine the platforming with the puzzles as seamless as possible. Most of your time is not spent just climbing, but timing your jumps, planning them out, even sometimes figuring out the best route to get to your next destination. It took the methodical nature of the original games and the platforming of the new ones to make some kind of puzzle platformer or something. Even if you played the original, you can still have fun with this, as locations and the puzzles have received big changes that even me, who played the first one like a week before this one, could easily recognize locations while still discovering new things about them. So yeah, that to me is why this game is so great. It took the concepts from the original Tomb Raider and evolved and expanded on them. You know, something that should have been done way earlier if only some developers had more time to do so. Like seriously, I have little negatives about this game. I think it looks great, I think it plays great, it has a decent story, and I even think it looks pretty good to this day. Yeah, no question, this is hands down my favorite Tomb Raider game. Honestly, if you've not played the original Tomb Raider, I think this is the definitive version that you should play. It's that good, it's better than the first one anyway. Now this made me excited to see what the final game, Tomb Raider Underworld, would be like, and sadly it's okay again. It's unfortunate that I think one of the reasons Anniversary was good is because it combined what made both Core and Crystal D good at designing these kinds of games in some beautiful fusion. Here, it's just Crystal D at the helm again, and they definitely have different ideas. Not bad ones, just kind of mid. I mean, I don't have much to say. It's a good game, it just doesn't really do anything to differentiate itself from its predecessors. That is the theme today, I suppose. I also couldn't play this game for long because... okay, get this shit. So if you remember, I'm playing these on PC, and I played on max settings because I'm a real gamer. I noticed though while playing this game, the physics were garbage. They were glitching, never hit their mark, and just bugged out. Well, I looked it up, and apparently for some reason the physics engine in this game is tied to the FPS. So I'm like, word, okay. So I'll just go in and change the FPS, lower it a bit, get on with my life. The problem is, for some reason, whenever I tried to lower the FPS of this game, it would crash. So it was literally impossible for me to change the FPS of this game. And try as I might to power through the wonky physics, it was impossible for me to continue. I couldn't make it past the first level. I tried for 30 minutes. So fuck it. Not even Lara's wet booty cheeks could get me to keep trying. So unfortunately, I can't really give my opinion about this game because I didn't really play it. But after watching other people play it, it looks like it's just Legends in a lot of the same ways, so I don't really think I'm missing anything. But yeah, well, unfortunately I couldn't look at that one. That is all the Tomb Raider games I'm looking at in this video. Yes, there are more that I'm not looking at for various reasons. Some of you may remember the last game published by Eidos being Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light. This game is very different from Tomb Raider games, probably why they removed it from the title. This one is a top-down game, so kinda similar to The Prophecy. However, it heavily encourages co-op play, so I'm not looking at it because the game is good, but I don't have anyone to play it with. And it's one of those games where you're really not getting the full experience unless you're playing with another person, because playing it alone sucks. Then after that game, Eidos kinda out of nowhere was bought by Square Enix of all companies, leaving many of the franchises they own now under the zippers of Squae Enix, including of course Miss Croft, who was now a potential candidate for a Kingdom Hearts world, if you think about it. They did keep Crystal Dynamics on as the developers for Tomb Raider, and they eventually made a sequel to Guardian of Light, The Temple of Osiris, similar in some ways, though now being a 4-player co-op. And again, I don't really want to play a multiplayer game alone. That's sad, and the game is meant to be played with other people. You know, it's like trying to talk about a fighting game or a racing game that you played by yourself. Yeah, I can describe what it's like playing it, but without another human person to experience it with, I'm kind of missing out on 90% of the enjoyment of these kinds of games. Then of course there are the mobile games for Lara, like an Endless Runner, because everybody gets one I guess. The most recent mobile game being Tomb Raider Reloaded, which I don't care about, except, interesting fact, the OG voice actress for Lara, Shelley Blonde, who only ever voiced her in the original Tomb Raider on PS1, returned to voice her in that. So that's neat, I guess. Too bad it's a mobile game, so I don't care. And then yes, of course, there are the reboots that Square Enix decided to make with Crystal Dynamics after the acquisition. Making Crystal Dynamics, I guess, one of the first developers to say they rebooted a series twice. Now obviously with the video about to come to an end, I'm not talking about these today. I'm going to talk about them in a different video in the future whenever I finish that, as I really want to spend my time with those because I'm going to be talking about them a lot more and going to be talking about a lot more than just those games. Until then, take my advice, don't eat mushrooms in the woods.
Don't forget to